And so, you also mentioned something about, people saying, I like that song. So let's just backtrack for a second, because I know we're going to the future of what you're sort of envisioning as sort of how you're going to change things and sort of the next iteration of the work that you're doing. But let's just go backwards for a second. And can you tell me about how you connected this art form of hip hop with coffee and mental health? I know you said you were in a coffee shop, but like, how did you put those things together? And why do you think they're
Yeah,
so effective
yeah. I mean,
together?
a lot of people don't know this, but if you look up Christopher LeMark on like iTunes or any musical
Yep.
platform, I spent the last 20 some odd years like performing,
Yep.
hip hop music. I'm a poet first and foremost.
Amazing.
I did those things, and I thought, and that was one of the disappointments in that coffee shop, like, performing artists like I thought I would, right? So there's some
Right.
disappointment there.
Hmm.
And so like when you look at coffee, it was been in this coffee shop that no one bothered me. It was no bias, no judgment. I had the space to just sit here and be messy and clean myself up and then have this realization to go to therapy. But the reason why hip hop is there is because hip hop to me is just as important to the black community as the civil
Yeah.
rights, like the Black Panther Party movement, when like the Black Power movement, right? When
Hmm.
you look at what was going on in like culture, from the civil rights perspective, like the next thing that was very prominent to us was the hip hop community.
Hmm.
We were taught so much. You can talk about all the problematic stuff that comes with hip hop, but hip hop was a way that we talked about the AIDS epidemic. We talked
Hmm.
about, the stuff that we were going through. We was informing like all these other communities about what was happening in our
Right.
area with the
Hmm.
drugs and things of that nature. So that's why it was polarizing to people, because it was like, wow, for real? that because when you tell someone a story that they cannot relate to, that becomes an interest point or entertainment. But more than anything, hip hop is a bridge. It's the way that we use it to connect to our community so we can speak their language, so we can say, hey, I'm meeting you where you are, but let me
Hmm.
tell you about this exceptional thing over here called mental health and this
Hmm.
counseling community, something I think that you can use because technically you're using hip hop as a form of therapy if you're an artist. But if you're
Yes.
a listener,
Yes.
listening to these poetry, and because you got to think about hip hop has parented
Yes.
our community.
Yes. Yes.
That's some people that didn't have a father that stands by everything Jay-Z has said.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's the bridge.
Hmm.
It's how we bridge a gap between the community and the mental health space, right? And
Right.
then being someone that use hip hop as a way to diary my own journey, it's the
Right.
thing that helped me not want to kill myself because I can go back to hip hop and write out my pain.
Hmm.
It was my first form of therapy. It was so many
Right.
people first form of therapy because we trusted that art form and the
Right.
orators of that more so than the white guy that we would see on TV sitting across the couch. You don't relate, you don't understand, and why I don't
Right.
fear you, I don't trust you. So
Right.
this is my comfort zone here.
Right. And so how did you use hip hop as a way to connect with people? I mean, I understand what you're talking about. Music is such a powerful connector to people,
Yeah.
and it's poetry and it's oral history and storytelling. All of that
Yeah.
is embedded in hip hop.
Here's
How
how.
did
I mean,
you
here's
use
how.
it?
You put a bunch of people in a room, like I said earlier, you got all those different people in the room, but you
Right.
play like 808s and Heartbreak. You play the blueprint. You go through like Stillmatic or Illmatic. You go through any of those hip hop records and you play those different songs
Right.
just off one verse alone. You can talk about. I mean, first of all, storytelling is super powerful. Like because when anyone's telling their story, you give people permission to tell their story. But what if the person
Totally.
in the song is talking about something that reminds you of the old school neighborhood? You
Right.
can take that one song and build a whole conversation about love, grief, violence, and now you're going to start hearing everybody's story. And then
Yeah.
know what that does? It makes the therapy space, the group therapy space, and our space much more easy. And it's like, oh man, I remember what happened back then. And then again, if you play a song that's talking about love and relationship, music is the only thing that doesn't ask for permission to insert in our lives. Just think about it. That's why we learn music fast, right? So when you look at the psychology and the power of music, when we're all shopping and we don't realize because we hear that song so much that we're naturally learning that. So we use that as a
Right.
guiding point to
Right.
like start or spark conversation,
Hmm.
right? Because it's also an icebreaker. You play the
Yeah.
favorite hip hop song, you play Love Yours by J. Cole, and
Hmm.
you're like, wow, you know what? There will always be somebody who will be seemingly so more attractive, who will have more opportunity. And that's the beauty about that. Hip hop is so intricate and so smart, so brilliant. You can say a whole lot in a 16 bar verse, which ultimately a hip hop song is anywhere between 2:30 to 3 minutes, and you can relate. Hip hop
Right.
relates, it connects, it does so much in a
Yeah.
3 minutes than you're doing in your whole life. So we have to
Yeah.
leverage that art form.
Yes.
I mean,
Absolutely.
you feel me? And like and that's how we use it. We like put you in a room, and I can't wait for the conversation that we're gonna have at the end of the month. And then we're gonna talk about the psychology and culture of hip hop. Where did it start? Where are we now? How did it evolve? And how is it impacting our community? When you do that, you get people to look around from an accountability standpoint and say, are we doing okay? Are we
Hmm.
okay? Are we
Hmm.
communicating okay? Right? Did hip hop go so commercial? Nah, it didn't go so commercial, but corporate just decided like to put money into one particular part of this hip hop culture, right? So as much as we're using it, we still have to be responsible with what we're saying and who we're
Yeah.
saying it to.
Yeah. And so, this takes me back to my early days in public health when I just graduated from college before I went to medical school. I was
Okay.
running a program for kids in the DCFS system here in
Mm,
Illinois, in Chicago. And we did some projects with a couple of mentors of mine who are in public health here in the city, using music as a way to get kids to open up about sexual health, about sexual protection. But that was back in the days when HIV and AIDS was,
mm,
rampant, huge. That's where I, graduated out of college into that
mm.
public health dilemma.
Ooh,
And so that was the kind of work we were doing. And we're using music as a way to ice break, to connect with kids who were
absolutely.
from all of these different neighborhoods in Chicago. So it just brings me back to that. Um, and so I understand how powerful music is.